Hello and welcome, piano enthusiasts. In this video I'm going to take you through kind of a quick flip of just a Yamaha Baby Grand. It's a GH1 made in Japan. This was kind of their entry level at the time. It's still a decent piano. It's just not the same as like a G1 or a C1. But it comes in at 5'3". This piano I picked up at a restaurant, and it had been heavily used. Somebody spilled some coffee in there. You can see, ooh, yeah. Somebody might have had a chair right next to the piano, and the back of the chair probably dug into the side. Now you're looking at the top of the lid, and just all over the piano there are these big scratches and dents and dings. So there's another one. Also, there's just a start of a crack here on the soundboard. There's where that coffee spill was. Somebody cleaned it up, but this piano is a flip for a resale, so it'll need to look good and sound good, of course, too. So I'm just going to start taking it apart, and I'm I'm not necessarily going to do just the cosmetic part and finish that and then do the acoustic part and then finish that. I'm kind of going to do everything all at once because I'm trying to get it done as fast as I can, because the dealers really like having these Yamahas because they're quick sellers for them. So you can see the hammers. While it was there at the restaurant, they did have it serviced frequently. So somebody had been maintaining the instrument fairly well. He reshaped the hammers at some point. You can see the keys are kind of sloppy there. So it's got a bit of wear on it. So with this piano, I'll go ahead and replace the key bushings. And on the sides they're okay, but yeah, I'll go ahead and replace all of them. And here's that crack again. It's kind of just barely, you can call that a hairline crack. At this point it's just a cosmetic thing. It's not making any buzzes or anything. So I'm gonna wheel the action in and blast all the dust out of it. See all the dust coming out of there. And I'll wheel the piano over. And I'll kind of shine up the strings and the A-graphs. The strings they're okay. They've got a little bit of rust on them, but it's a 30-year-old piano, so about to be expected. And this video just kind of shows you the different, like, when you see a piano on a showroom, like in a showroom on the floor, sometimes you don't realize all the work that goes into getting a used piano in tip-top shape. And sometimes that can mean a lot of cleaning, or a lot of regulation, or a lot of cabinet repairs, or in this case, all three. So I think on this piano I spent, I've got 26 hours of video, so about 26 hours worth of work into it, not including driving 2 hours to pick it up. And when I picked it up, it was in downtown Grand Rapids basically, and I was walking down the street by myself with the with the Baby Grand on the sidewalk. So probably not the smartest thing to do, but you gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. So here I'm taking care of that coffee spill. I changed out those little tuning pin bushings because once they get soaked with coffee, I can't get the stain out. So I just replaced them so they'll look nice again. Here I'm taking the keys off, and you can see that front pin there is turned, and you can see kind of a divot in the middle of the key bushing. So if so, this is kind of a band-aid. You can see all those turned there. So if the keys are loose, the technician can easily and quickly just turn those pins, and that will tighten up the pins, the keys a little bit, so they're not as wobbly. Um, Now I don't want to turn the pins even more, because the more you turn them, the more that pin kind of gouges into the bushing felt. So I'll just put the right size cloth in there. Now I'm steaming out the cloth. And gluing the new key bushings in. I think the balance rail on this one is 139 thousandths of an inch. Those are those brass pieces there, the cawls. And the front rail is 129 thousandths of an inch. Got a little chisel there that's the perfect width. The only problem is you got to sharpen it like every other time. So I don't know if it's quicker to, I haven't figured out yet if it's quicker to sharpen this or just to use new cheap disposable razor blades, and it takes a little bit longer each key. And I've gone to using, I used to use the glue, I used to use the hide glue. But the problem with that is I've noticed the hide glue seeps through the bushing a little bit more than the quick and thick. So when I put the Pro Felt on it, the glue just kind of starts to come off if it's hide glue. So I switched to quick and thick. Because that you can still take out with steam. Okay, so now I'm sealing the cracks with some CA glue, cyanoacrylate or super glue. So this is the super thin stuff that'll get in there and prevent the crack from getting any bigger. And now I'm going to fill the crack with it's not quite medium. I think it's called liquid, but it's not as thin as the real thin. So it fills the crack easily, and I've got it taped up on the underside. I didn't get a picture of that. So yeah, I just have to kind of spritz the activator on that, and the top of it's cured. It probably takes a day or so for the glue that's inside the crack to actually cure. But I can level it, I can sand it, I've scraped it level. Now I'm just sanding it. Now I'm going to spray some shellac over it because it'll match the color perfectly. Ta-da! And then what happens is the shellac is a gloss sheen, so what's on the soundboard now is more of a satin to semi-gloss. So I'll wait for the shellac. So I waited, and now this is a satin coat that I'm spraying on there, just a clear coat. I'll wait for that to dry and give it another quick coat. And I turned the lights off by accident, so yeah, that's so the goal wasn't to make it disappear to your eye. The goal was to fill it and make sure it doesn't get any bigger. And so it's not going to buzz like 3 weeks after the dealer sells it, and then they got to go back out and figure out where's this buzz coming from. So yeah, this damper was kind of misshapen, so I just took it off and put a new one on. This is the kind of stuff that you can do quickly in the shop, but not so quickly if it's in the customer's home or if it's on site. So now I'm putting it's called Pro Felt on the key bushings that sizes the cloth to the call, so it's exactly 129 thousandths of an inch. So it's so it's not too tight, not too loose. So now I'm going to start some of the cosmetic repairs. So this is a black high gloss. It's a polyester resin. It's different than a normal nitrocellulose lacquer. So it's basically the same stuff you spray on the outside of a boat, a gel coat. And it's in cars too, like it'll be a clear coat over your wood paneling in like a BMW or any nice car. So this stuff, it's kind of like an epoxy. You mix the two parts together, but this you just have the resin and then you mix a tiny bit of catalyst with it. Now I'm going back to the keys. And I'm straightening these pens. Putting the keys back on, then I'll have to ease them a little bit because the hole in the bottom, when I steam the old bushings out, the hole in the bottom of the key swells up a little bit. So I have to kind of compress that wood there a little bit. I'll tighten all the screws, and now that the new resin is dry, I'll go ahead and start to level it. And this is the hard part of polyester because this stuff is really, really tough to sand. It's not like sanding wood. I mean, this stuff is so dense and it wears out the sandpaper. And it just takes forever to sand. But I've got over the years, I've got a few tools to help it go quicker. I used to do it all by hand. And that was no fun. So most of the damage was just on the front here. I mean, you saw what the lid looked like, but that's just scratches. The legs are kind of chewed up too, but I didn't have another 3 days to spend just on the legs, so I just kind of colored the wood spots black, basically. Just made it not immediately noticeable. So here's some more scratches on the outer rim of the piano. So I'll sand those out. Maybe I should have backed the camera up a little bit. It's kind of hard to watch. So yeah, here I'm taking out those deep scratches in the curved part of the rim, just with some 600 grit and dust collection. You can see those little tiny spots on the right side there. And the goal is to get rid of most of them. The worst thing I can do here is sand through. That would really suck. Now I'm going with some probably 1000 grit here. I'll put some 2000 grit here. And these I started with 320, so I'll go with some 600 with just by hand. Those foam sanding discs are so expensive. I've got to stop using so many of those. So, yeah, so I'll go back, touch up all these spots. Then after 600, I'll go through with 1,000, and then after that, I'll go through 2,000, and then 3,000 or 4,000. So here's the 1,000 grit. Yeah, I probably should have backed the camera up a little bit, because with the reflection, I don't know, it's just kind of, can't really see what I'm doing. Here's some 2,000 grit. Oh, and here's where I thought my Mirka sander died on me, because they have a habit. If you look online, just type in Mirka sander. Most of the reviews are really terrible because they go bad in like a year or something. Luckily, it was just the cord, so I replaced the cord. I had a bunch of extra cords. So yeah, I've had this one for 5 years, and that's the first thing that's happened. Just the cord. I can just resplice the cord. I think it's just loose at the where you plug it in. So here I'm going to start sanding the lid. This is, I started with some 1,000 grit, but it wouldn't do anything, so I took it back down to 600. Now I've got some 1,000 grit on this air sander. This is a dual pad inline sander. I found one of these recently. I've been waiting for a used one because I don't make them new anymore. I've been waiting for one to pop up on eBay, and finally one did for a reasonable price. And it came with the original steel wool pads that are designed to go on there, so that was pretty cool. But this is a lot easier to see when I'm done sanding through the prior grit sanding scratches. So you see I went left to right, or I went one direction the first time, then I went the other direction with a higher grit, so I could see when I was done with sanding through the lower grit. And that sander will save me a lot because I can just use regular sandpaper on that, and I don't have to use those foam discs, which are like $3 or $4 a piece. And I've got a guy who sells them to me for quote unquote cheap, but they're but I have to buy 4 boxes at a time. Anyway, so now I'm buffing out the 4,000 grit sanding scratches. And the front part, the scratches, if you can't feel the scratch with your fingernail, you can probably buff it out with the buffer. It's not always true, but like so on the big lid, on the back half, there were all these scratches that you could feel with your finger as you went over it. So those have to be sanded out. Those aren't going to come out with the buffer. Now I'm just shining up the heads of the screws so they'll be shiny and not dark brown, because those are solid brass. Now I'm going to buff the side of the piano, the outer rim. You can see this this buffing rouge, buffing compound. It goes everywhere. So I've got the fan on, and this isn't something that you can do in like a dealership, or I mean, you can't do it on the floor. If they have a separate room, you can take the piano to, or upstairs or downstairs, whatever. So yeah, so here's the before of all those scratches. Most of these scratches, as you drag your fingernail over them, you can feel it. and here's the after. And I think that air sander really helps. It helps me monitor when I'm done sanding, because I think with the prior projects you've seen in these other videos, I just use the random orbit sander and I don't really know. I'm just guessing if I'm done sanding through the previous grit. So I think that's really going to help me. Yeah, and unfortunately they don't make those sanders new anymore, and I'm glad I found a used one for a good price. They used to use those in like fine furniture making, like Ethan and Alan tabletops, when they would rub out a table or any piece of furniture. So now I'm leveling the keys. With use, the punchings get compressed, and you could see that when I had that black bar over the keys, you could see some that were dipping down quite a bit. So I just did a quick leveling of the keys there. Now I'm going to tune it up. And when I took those tuning pin bushings out, I had to take the strings off, so I'll have to tune that top section twice to get it to stabilize. Not much to look at, sorry. So when the damage is down to the wood, I've discovered that it's best to do a sealer coat first, so that will absorb into the wood, and then right before the first coat cures all the way, I'll put the rest in. I'll put another fill in to fill it up all the way. So that ensures the second coat bonds chemically with the first coat. But if I were to do it all in one coat, I would have bubbles and cracks, and it just wouldn't look as good. So now I'm leveling that out. Some 600, 1,000, 2,000. And this little sander is really handy. And now I'm just, that's some 4,000 with the block there. And the bench, I decided just to replace the bench instead of spending 3 hours sanding and repainting the legs. And also on the inside of the old bench, it had some problems. So I wasn't going to spend half a day with the bench. I can just use it for parts for when the next bench comes in broken. Now I'm getting the dust off. Because that buffing compound, I said it gets everywhere, but what happens was when you buff it, it creates a real high static charge on the finish. So all the dust just clings to it. So like you can go around it 3 times, and then you wait 10 minutes, and then it's dusty again. And here I've got a smaller buffer just for smaller areas like this, so I don't have to use the gigantic buffer. This I like to use in people's homes for just spot repairs. So like I said, in previous video, I think I said you can't really get rid of these sanding scratches by hand. I've tried everything, and that buffer, it just takes it out immediately. So I'm not going to sit there by hand and scrub for 5 minutes to get out one tiny scratch, or the sanding scratches that I've sanded around that scratch. So literally, I had to kind of cut it short here because the moving truck arrived to pick up the piano. So sorry I couldn't do like a demo of the piano. So here's the after shot on that arm there. And yeah, it should be a quick seller for the dealer. Pretty shiny inside there. Thanks for watching.